Debt repayment techniques are becoming more and more important as more and more people have debt, and not just one debt, but rather multiple debts to their name. So in addition to a mortgage, they will additionally have medical debt, student loan debt, and consumer debt. And with that, they need to develop strategies to pay down that debt. And therefore, we are going to talk today about the three main techniques that exist for paying down debt: the one that is fastest, the one that is best, and the one that is newest. And so let's get started with the video and the first technique. The first technique is the debt avalanche. The debt avalanche is, mathematically speaking, the fastest technique for paying down your debt. But it carries a great risk of failure. We will talk about this more in a moment, but first we need to talk about the following. These techniques are designed for people that have more than one creditor, that have more than one debt that they owe. So it's not designed for someone that just has a mortgage or just has student loans or just owes money on one credit card. These techniques are designed for people that have two or more debts at the same time. And to properly compare how these techniques affect someone's financial situation, we are going to use a standardized example to then use for these three techniques. Our example person is going to have the following debt positions. They're going to have two credit cards. The first credit card they owe $1,500 on at 19.99% annual interest rate. They need to make a monthly minimum payment of $35. The second debt position is a credit card that they owe $4,000 on. They have an annual interest rate of 21.99%. The third debt position is going to be a car loan on which this person will owe $12,500 at a 4% interest rate with a minimum monthly payment of $280. The fourth debt position is going to be a personal line of credit on which the person owes $500 with a 6.5% annual interest rate and a minimum monthly payment of $10. The fifth debt position is going to be a personal loan of $8,000 at 9% interest with a minimum monthly payment of $365. This means that in our example, the minimum monthly payments are $765 per month, and these payments must be made to make sure that you do not end up paying financial penalties on any of your debts. With all of the techniques, we will make those minimum monthly payments. The difference comes in the excess of money that you can contribute. Now, let us really get started with the first technique, the avalanche technique. Why is the avalanche technique so fast? It is in the structure in which you pay back the money where the magic is. You will structure all of your debt and list it from highest percentage debt to lowest percentage debt. So the amount you owe and the minimum monthly payment, they are not relevant to the avalanche technique. The only thing that matters is your annual interest rate that you pay. So in our example, we are going to have credit card number 2 at the very top with 21.99%, and we're going to have the car loan at the very bottom with 4% annual interest rate. What we will now do is we will make our monthly minimum payments towards all of our debt positions, but any extra money that we can contribute to pay off our debt goes towards the debt with the highest percentage. So credit card number 2, which has the 21.99% interest. This we're going to continue every month until our debt with the highest interest rate is paid off. What happens now is we are going to continue to make our monthly minimum payments, which now have been lowered in our example by $75 a month, but we're going to use those extra $75 a month to now contribute it towards our new highest debt position. In our example, the credit card number 1 with 19.99% interest. So this process gets repeated again and again, where you pay down aggressively your highest interest debt whilst still making all your monthly minimum payments and all your other debts until you have erased all of your debts and are only left with your lowest percentage debt, which you can then tackle last. This way, you're going to pay off your debt the fastest way because you don't accumulate as much interest over time. One thing that has to be pointed out with this technique, and it's probably the most important thing, is people tend to fail. People tend to not be able to stick with this technique because it is oftentimes unrewarding. This is because when you pay towards your highest interest debt, you oftentimes are in a situation where you also pay towards your highest amount debt, because the high interest that you have already been paying previously will have increased this debt amount tremendously. Therefore, it is oftentimes very unrewarding to follow the avalanche technique because you might be paying for a very long time on your first debt. So the failure rate is very high on this technique and is best practiced if you know you are a very disciplined individual or have an amazing support system that can motivate you to continue with this technique when you are not feeling so great about how slowly you are paying down that large amount of your highest interest debt. So just keep that in mind, be honest with yourself, and assess whether you think you are capable of paying down your debt in this way. If you are, it's fantastic because, as I said, mathematically, this is the fastest way of paying down your debt. Now, let us move on to the opposite, the most reliable technique to pay off your debt. The most reliable technique is the debt snowball. The debt snowball is a technique where we don't look at the interest rates at all. What we look at is the overall amount that you owe in each debt position. So here we are going to look at which of your debts has the smallest amount overall and which one has the highest. And we're going to list your debts from smallest to highest. So in our example, the smallest debt is the line of credit with $500 owing, and the highest debt is the car loan with $12,500 owing. And what we're going to do here is we are going to, just as with the first technique, make all the minimum monthly payments, and all the excess money we have to contribute towards the debt repayment, we will pay towards the smallest debt amount. So in this case, towards the personal line of credit. And with that excess money, we will very quickly be able to wipe out this debt position, for we only owe $500 here. And if we now make our monthly excess payments on this, we can very quickly get rid of the first debt, which is very motivating and gets people excited to continue paying off their debt. This is also the secret as to why this technique is so reliable, because it plays towards the human psychology. The first model, the avalanche model, assumes a homo economicus, a human that makes perfect economical choices. But realistically, we are not homo economicus. We make financial choices that are not perfect and rational. We make emotional financial choices as humans, no matter how hard we try to rationalize our financial choices. Therefore, this technique yields a much greater success rate than the avalanche debt repayment technique. Therefore, if you want to choose any technique, choose this one, and you are more likely to consistently and reliably pay back your debt. This technique does take longer to pay back, and it takes more money to pay back, because while you are paying back your low amount debts, your high interest rates debts will accumulate more interest that you then have to pay down. But what oftentimes happens with people that do use the snowball technique is that they are so motivated by being able to wipe out entire debt positions that they find ways to contribute even more money every month, so they sometimes finish even faster than someone using the avalanche technique, not because they mathematically should, but because of the motivation they receive, and it leads them to make even more contributions. And that's the secret of this technique. Let us move on to the last and newest technique of debt repayment. This one is debt consolidation. Debt consolidation is the newest out of these debt repayment techniques, and there's different ways about going about debt consolidation. We are going to just look at a generic example. The different kinds of debt consolidation we are going to look at in a different video. But for today's video, the debt consolidation that would be performed in our example is that here we have a line of credit that the person owes money on, the $500, but we have a $7,500 limit on the line of credit, which means $7,000 are still available. With that, you would then use your line of credit, because it has a lower interest rate, and use it to pay down your high interest rate debts. In this case, you would pay down your 2 credit cards because they have the highest interest rates with 21.99% and 19.99%. So you would use $4,500 of your line of credit to pay down those debts. This means that now you owe more money on your line of credit, but you owe that same amount of money at a lower interest rate. So instead of paying a 20+% interest rate, you are now paying a 6% interest rate, which is a huge difference financially over the long run. Additionally, you could use even more money out of your line of credit to pay down your personal loan. In this case, you need to prioritize the highest interest rate debt when you use this debt consolidation technique. So you need to first pay down the credit cards and then use the extra money available from the line of credit to pay towards the personal loan. Just keep in mind, you will not be able to wipe out the entire debt of the personal loan, because here you owe $8,000. So you can only reduce it from the $8,000 to $6,500. And with that, you have now wiped out your credit card debt, but the amount that you owe has not changed. So debt consolidation does not change how much you owe. It just changes at what interest rate you owe. And with that, it also needs to be pointed out that debt consolidation is most useful for people that have high interest debt. So typically it is for people that have credit card debt or consumer debt. If you have something such as a car loan, then debt consolidation will probably not help you, because debt consolidation itself does not come with the lowest possible interest rates. It just comes with an interest rate that is lower than very high interest rates. And debt consolidation can also be beneficial because you only need to pay towards one creditor if you had the opportunity to combine all your debts. But it also has a downside, which is the psychological aspect of it, which is that you cannot see that you paid down positions of your debt, which was the large advantage with the snowball technique. So with that consolidation, it can oftentimes feel as if now you're sitting in front of this mountain of debt and you need to pay it back, which is a lot less motivating than being able to see that you make progress on different debt positions. Now, again, mathematically, if you use debt consolidation to get rid of high interest debt, it makes sense. But it also has to make sense for you personally, in your individual situation. And to get better advice on that, make sure to talk with a financial advisor. Don't just take advice off of anyone. Make sure you talk with a financial advisor, because these decisions will impact your future for many years to come. So make sure you choose the right company for debt consolidation, the right product, the right time frame, the right negotiation, and these things will hugely depend on your individual situation. So I can only urge you, if you're thinking about debt consolidation, don't go lightly about it. This needs to be thought of well, but it can benefit you. Another thing that oftentimes comes up as a worry of people is my credit score going to get hurt by debt consolidation? The answer is kind of. It gets hurt temporarily because your credit score will need to get pulled to be able to evaluate how they can borrow you money, at what interest rate, for how long, all these legal details they will need to make a pull on your credit score for, which will temporarily decrease your credit score. Emphasis being on temporarily. So yes, it does decrease your credit score in the short run, but it doesn't hurt you in the long run. The important thing is that if you go with debt consolidation, that you do it wisely. Debt consolidation makes absolutely no sense if you use it towards low interest debt. It does not make sense except for very, very unique situations that wouldn't make sense to discuss in this video. So therefore, make sure that it works for you and that with your individual debts, interest rates, repayment periods, that it makes sense, that each of these techniques works for you. If you're unsure where to begin, start with the snowball technique because it has the lowest risk factor in how it can negatively impact your life. With the avalanche technique, you might make mistakes along the way that get you in a position where you don't want to repay your debt. And with the debt consolidation, you might rush into a disadvantageous contract. So therefore, start slowly and just most importantly, start paying down your debt. I can only emphasize this again and again. Repaying your debt is typically the best investment you can make, particularly if you have high interest debt. But even with debts around 4, 5, 6%, oftentimes it might look better on paper to invest your money because you see, oh, I make an 8% return annually. But just keep in mind that in most countries around the world, the gains that you have from your investments are taxable. Depends on where you live, they are differently taxable. But just keep that in mind. Just because you got an 8% return on your investment does not mean you get all of that money in your bank at the end of the day. So with debt and interest rates, if you pay back your debt and avoid a 6% interest rate, this is money you have saved yourself. And money saved is typically more valuable than money earned because there's no tax on money you save. So just keep that in mind and make sure to discuss these things with a trained financial advisor because again, these decisions will influence your financial future for years to come. And with that, I am certain these 3 techniques can help you to get rid of that dreaded debt and help you to become debt-free. And I wish you a wonderful day wherever you are. Take care. Bye. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And if you want to keep on learning, click on one of these videos.